Okay, so let us talk about tuples. Is it a tuple? Is it a tuple? I don't know how it's called, but then for now, I'll just call it a tuple. Tuples group multiple values into a single compound value. The values within a tuple can be of any type and don't have to be the same type as each other. Okay, well, I think this reminds me of a JSON object. That's pretty much the thing that really comes to my mind when I think of a tuple. I'm thinking of a JSON object because obviously sometimes you want to store information into, obviously, you want to store a bunch of information. And I think if you look at a tuple, obviously, I understand this from a database point of view. In a database, you may have a table, and the table may have fields. And what will those fields be in the table? For example, maybe some of the fields that we might have, let's say, is ID. What other thing we might have? First name. Okay, obviously, let's talk about a person table. That's a person table that we have. And then what else could we may have last name? Cool. And let's say age as well. Age. Why would you go for gender? Cool. Let's say gender. So we may have a table called the person table, and the table has all these fields within it. And obviously, these are the fields. And so, what JavaScript, what a JSON object does, it allows us to create some sort of an object that holds all these values together. And so now, I think what's interesting about this is obviously, okay. So what's interesting about this is that now we can hold all these values together, and then all of them will be represented by perhaps a single variable. They will be represented by a person variable, which has all these values inside of it. Let's say ID, first name. What am I even doing? I sound like I'm a professional now. Okay, let's see. Maybe I'm right. Well, that's because I had a look at it before. Let's see. In this example, 404 not found is a tuple that describes an HTTP status code. An HTTP status code is a special value returned by a web server whenever you request a web page. A status code of 404 not found is returned if you request a web page that doesn't exist. The 404 not found tuple groups together an int and a string to give the HTTP status code two separate values, a number and a human readable description. It can be described as a tuple of type int string. Okay, cool. That makes sense. I think so far all this makes sense. I really understand what is going on here. Probably maybe it's because I already looked at it before, so okay, maybe I'm cheating, but it's fine though. It's fine. Um, okay, so pretty much what they were saying is that sometimes the website will give you a 404, which means your page that you were requesting is not found. And so now that whole information, 404 obviously is the code, and then not found is the label or the description of 404. And so sometimes you want to house all these things, all these, values or fields into a single variable called HTTP 404 error. So that's pretty much what they were doing here. So they created a tuple that houses all these things together. You can create tuples or tuples. I'll just call it a tuple for now. You can create a tuple, tuples from any permutation of types. And they can, okay, permutation, I think is a combination. If I remember, I looked into this. Permutation could be combination. Arrangement, okay. Arrangements, oh, that's the word, computation. Okay, you can create tuples from any permutation of types or arrangement of types, and they can contain as many different tuples as you like. There's nothing stopping you from having a tuple of type int, or string and bool, or indeed any other permutation you require or arrangement you could require. You can decompose a tuple's contents into separate constants or variables, which you then access as usual. Okay, let's see what they mean by this. Okay, so I understand what they wanted to mean with this. Okay, cool. Let's say ID is 0, Now, how do I do this? How do I create this? Can't I just give it? Okay, cool. There we go. Now let's say the ID is 200. But then can I say this is of type string? Or does it already automatically know that it is of type string? I think that's quite interesting. How does it work around it? Because I want to say this is of type string. And yet it shouldn't work, obviously, because we know 200 is not of type string. So let us do this and see if it's going to work. Okay, let's see. Let's not confuse ourselves here. What we do know is that when we create a variable of type string, let's say ID, we want to make it of type string, we say this is a string, and then we give it a value 200, right? So can we do the same here? Okay, it's not happy. So let's see, ID string. Obviously, we saw this idea didn't work. It doesn't assign it this way. Let's check another thing. Cannot assign. Okay, cool. Let's see, ID string 200. I think we had an error that was being reported to us. Cannot assign to immutable expression of type string. Cannot assign value type string to type string value. But then now if I do it this way, obviously the string here is a reserved keyword and it's not going to take it the way that I want it to be. And which is quite interesting. I mean, what if I want to do something like this, ID, and I want to keep it empty? But then now the problem is, now the problem with this is obviously if I then want to, let's say person.id, okay, it should work though. Okay, let's take it one step at a time and see what's going on here. Because obviously it now breaks the rules of type inversion. What is this? What's the term that I'm looking for? If we do not do it this way, then it breaks the rules of I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I'm looking for the term. Of type safety and type inference. If we do not do it this way, if we do it this way, I mean, if we, okay, where were we? If we do it this way, it breaks the rules of type inference. Because then, what if I say ID is equal to 20? Value type of tuple type string int has no member ID. What are we doing here? Okay, let's understand this thing properly before we rush into things. Because obviously I'm thinking JavaScript at this point. Okay, so we understood the first part of what a tuple is. So now how do we use a tuple? So for the first thing that we see that we have here is we have something along these lines. Let's say we have var http 404 error. Cool. That's what we have. And you know he's happy with us. So then we can print http 404 error. So now what is this one here? It should print 404. Okay, but then now it's almost as if these things are accessed via an array and I cannot use. Obviously this makes sense because the values do not have, what is this? The values do not have labels, and it makes sense how it'll behave this way. The values do not have labels. Since the values do not have labels, they will therefore be access similar to an array. That's pretty much what we're going to have. So let's see. The 404 not found tuple groups together an int. Okay, cool. I see that. You can decompose a tuple's contents into separate constants or variables, which you then access as usual. But then to do so, you cannot do so dynamically. It appears that you need to understand or know the names of the variables and also how many variables or constants are included in the tuple itself in order for you to break it down. For example, let's try to do this and see if it's going to work. Let's say var, I'll say status code. And then let's say it's equal to HTTP 404 error. Now the question is, who will get assigned to the status code here if we don't get an error? Okay, it appears that we're good. Who will get assigned into this? Is it the first element of the tuple, or is it the second element of the tuple? So let us say this print status code. So what it did, it assigned all these things here into status code. That's what it did. And so now pretty much what I did here, I just printed HTTP 404 error, which is clear, because it means that I took the whole object and assigned it into here, into status code. That's pretty much what I did there. Now that is fair. So then what if I do this? Then I say not found. That's not found. And I want to print not found. What will happen? Okay, cool. It's able to print not found provided I have the same number of fields or attributes of the tuple. Now what if I add an extra one, is found? What happened then? Who gets is found? Let's see. Ooh, it doesn't agree. It's not happy because we are taking more than we have. Let's see what the error is called. Int and string is not convertible to int, string, and an underscore. Tuples have a different number of elements. So in other words, we're getting an element error. We're trying to request more elements that we have in the actual tuple. So it's complaining there. Now that's easy. So what we're learning here is that we can take a tuple the way that it is and then reverse it back. And this is the syntax of how we do so. So let us see. If you need something, if you only need some of the tuple's values, ignore parts of the tuple with an underscore. Okay, I see now. So let's say we don't need found anymore. We only need one. So that means I just need to put an underscore here and then status code. Cool. So we can see we already have 404 being printed out for us. All right, cool. So it's happy. So I guess this underscore here. Now I need to understand what this underscore here means. But then for now, since we will get into it, because even here, since they know that it's still the beginning, they called it an underscore when you demonstrate the tuples. Alternatively, accessing individual element values in a tuple using index numbers starting at 0. Now you can do that. Well, the problem with this is that you will not always know the total number of... Can we do that though? If we have this, can we count the number of elements inside our tuples? Print. Wait, HTTP 404. I see the self. Is there such a thing as a count? What are we thinking? I don't know what we're thinking. Okay, let me use the length. Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, it's fine though, it's fine. If you name the elements in a tuple, you can use the element names to access the values of those elements. Okay, that makes sense. Tuples are particularly useful as the return values of functions. A function that tries to retrieve a web page might return int string. Tuple types type int string tuple type to describe the success or failure of the page retrieval. By returning a tuple with two distinct values, each of a different type, the function provides more useful information about its outcome than if it could only return a single value of a single type. For more information, see that. Tuples are useful for simple groups of related values. They are not suited to the creation of complex data structures. If your data structure is likely to be more complex, model it model it as a class or structure rather than as a tuple. Cool. So far so clear. I mean, so far clear. It's all good so far. So now we were trying. Let's recreate this person table here, this person tuple. So we have something like this. Okay. So now that means I can just comment this baby out here. So let's do that now. So we're gonna have something like var person is equal to id id. Cool. That's what we have there. First name. Now I'm sure I can give these. What is this? It's just I'm not seeing it here. Oh yeah. Well, we can give these things labels as we do see here. Yeah, we can give them labels. So now that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to create something I can also give labels. Why am I getting in? Okay, cool. First name, we'll say it's Chico. Surname, let's call it last name. And then age, say 27 for now. Gender, male. Let's make it a character. Okay, I think what I find interesting here is that obviously on C++ we have a character value, a character variable, but it appears that here we don't have it. We only have a string, but which is fine, not a problem. So now let us print all this thing here. Print person. Cool. Nice one. So we're able to print all this here. So now what if I print person and I take the second, or rather the third element? I can see it's Matlala, which is 0, 1, 2. 2 is Matlala, which is my surname. Alright, cool. Fair point. Sounds good. I think I'm going to end it here for tuples. And yeah, we're going to do optionals. Cheers.